And hello, everyone. Brad Logan. Appreciate you joining us today here. Josh Callaway, 24/7 Sports. You can follow Josh on Twitter at Josh M. Callaway. And he joins us today as today's show is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online, where the game starts. Head on over to the website today, betonline.ag. Use our promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, and get a 50% welcome bonus. Bet Online, the game starts here. Josh, I guess we can start here. You look at this Oklahoma team. I don't know if I talked to you this summer, and we said that Oklahoma would be 4-3, 1-3 in the conference. Are you a little surprised at where the Sooners are right now?
I don't know if there's that much surprise with the record necessarily. Coming into the year, I think most thought Tennessee is going to be a tough one. Texas expect to be a top five team. I think you would have hoped to take care of South Carolina at home. So probably 4-3 would have been a little bit like what went wrong there. The bigger surprise is been much more the level of play, the non-competitiveness, especially in the offensive side of the ball, which has been a disaster so far this season for Oklahoma. Really no other way to put that. So yeah, I mean, I think coming into the year, Oklahoma fans and certainly us, everyone kind of thought that this Sooner team had a chance to, if it all kind of came together with what they had coming back on defense, stud young quarterback Jackson Arnold, they could win, a lot of games. Now the schedule's going to be tough, but we kind of all thought if things go right, this team could win 7, 8, maybe 9 games. And right now, they're certainly not look like they're on track for that. So far, definitely a disappointing year and they got to figure a lot out. They're going to try and salvage it here down the backstretch.
Obviously, you guys broke the news, the firing of Seth Luttrell.
Yeah.
Where's this offense right now?
Looking for answers. It's been horrific this year. There's really no other way to put it. 107th in scoring, 128th in total offense right now is Oklahoma, and that's at a place that is obviously known for Heisman quarterbacks, lots of receivers in the NFL, lots of O linemen in the NFL. It's a place known for offense, and the last few years it hadn't fallen off that bad under Jeff Lebby, but he leaves to take over Mississippi State. They promote Seth Luttrell, who was an analyst on the staff, and it just didn't work, obviously. And there's other extenuating circumstances. The receiver room is decimated by injuries. Offensive line had to replace all five starters from last year. Have a new quarterback you're trying to work in. It's a difficult schedule. I mean, there are other factors, but the bottom line is the offense is just severely underperformed in pretty much every area. There's really not one thing that OU fans can feel like they can hang their hat on offensively so far. So Joe John Finley is going to take over. He was already the co-OC, but now he's going to be the play caller. He's never done that before. But the theory there is he's going to run an offense more similar to what Jeff Lebby was running before. So hopefully some familiarity there, something that Jackson Arnold is a little more used to going back to his high school days. And we'll see if they can make a difference. But the reality is, I think most OU fans feel like how much difference can it really make when you have an offensive line that's struggling as much as it is and you just struggle to do much of anything, run the ball, throw it, whatever. We'll see what difference it makes, but a change had to be made. The Sooners had to find something, try something to get a spark because it's been really really rough through the last 7 games and specifically the last two.
Um, Deviating just a moment from the current Oklahoma team, the name Jeff Lebby is obviously resonates throughout
Sure.
Mississippi. The head coach at Mississippi State now served as offensive coordinator in one of the most vibrant areas of offense in regards to Ole Miss football, maybe in its history. What was the fan base's thoughts on Jeff Lebby, and how was he to cover? And I don't know how much he was made available to the media, but what are the fans there in Oklahoma's thoughts on Jeff Lebby?
It was he had kind of an interesting run, his 2 years. He had the very unenviable spot of taking over right after Lincoln Riley. So you're stepping into a situation where the offenses of Oklahoma were basically as good as they get, in college football for an extended period. Again, like I kind of referenced earlier, Heisman quarterback after Heisman quarterback, NFL quarterback after NFL quarterback. So he came in with the bar basically as high as it could be, and it was pretty good. All that said, though, there was certainly stretches where OU fans were frustrated with the offense. The joke was always kind of, they could get 10 yards anytime they wanted, but you need 1 yard in a key spot. They struggle to do that. If that makes sense. Like the key moments is something the offense would tend to falter. And last season, the two losses in the regular season, the offense had a chance to go win those games both times and couldn't do it. So even though statistically on the whole, it was really good, top 10 offenses in a lot of categories, there was always a kind of a frustration there that when the chips were down, they could never seem to quite get the job done. And then the big moment. Now, in hindsight, I think a lot of OU fans miss Jeff with what's going on this year. So, I don't think that many OU fans were that upset to see him go necessarily. I think there was a belief that it's going to be fine and and like I said, in hindsight now, I think that probably looks a little bit different. We did talk to him pretty regularly, especially, after games and things like that. He was always pretty good with the media. He was a bit of a polarizing figure at time with his relationship with his father-in-law, things like that. But, for the most part, I think all kind of saw him as a future head coach just at some point. And obviously, I don't know if everybody thought it was going to necessarily be that quick this last offseason, especially getting an SEC gig. But, we'll see how it goes. And he's got his work cut out for him there, obviously, as they kind of rebuild that thing. But, it's hard to argue with the numbers. It was more just kind of the nuance of, if you watched it week to week, there were certain moments where it kind of was like, that's not what we were looking for, sort of a thing. But we'll see how he does out there. And I think most OU fans, generally speaking, are still pulling for him.
Let's get to this year's team for the Sooners. Jackson Arnold was named the starter on the show there at Sooner Scoop. You guys reported that. By the way, you guys do a great job, you and Tom and your staff at Sooner Scoop, an affiliate of 24/7 Sports.
Sooners Illustrated. Not that.
I apologize. Sooners Illustrated. What are your thoughts on Jackson Arnold? Is that the best call? Is that the best decision right now, in your opinion, at quarterback?
Yeah, I think so. Jackson was the guy coming into the year, and he was expected to be the guy all last year. Even when Dillon Gabriel was the guy, and we all knew he had another year of eligibility if he wanted it, there was a belief all season that when this is over, they're going to hand the keys over to Jackson Arnold. He's the 5-star. He's supposed to be the future of this thing. That's what they did. And Dillon Gabriel left. He decided to use his last year at Oregon, and that's going really well. And there was a lot of pressure on Jackson to step in and to be that next guy, that next Baker Mayfield, that next Kyler Murray, that next Caleb Williams, that next all of that. That was where the bar was. And he got up to a really rough start. Not all his fault. Again, the offensive line is not performing. He has no receivers. They're all hurt. The top 5 guys are all out right now. The run game hasn't been able to get going because of all that. And so the chips were stacked against him. Now, he also underperformed. They decided to put him down in the Tennessee game after he turned it over 3 times. They put in true freshman Michael Hawkins. He gave him a little bit of spark for a little while. He won the game in Auburn, big comeback in the fourth quarter. But then against Texas, against South Carolina, it was just completely a disaster. Couldn't move the ball at all. So they go back to Jackson. He gave him a little something in South Carolina. They moved the ball somewhat. Again, it's all kind of relative. But yeah, I think that you kind of had to go back to Jackson. And we'll see how he does the rest of the year and kind of where things stand after the season. I give Jackson a lot of credit for sticking with it. In modern college football, it would have been very easy for him to shut it down and save his red shirt and portal and all that good stuff. But he hung around. He stayed engaged. He told OU, you want to throw me back in? I'm ready for that. And that's what they did. So I think it's the right move. I think they probably will stick with him the rest of the way. Obviously, never know, never say never, but I think it's probably his gig the rest of the season, and then they'll kind of figure things out after that. He's a really talented kid. I think he just kind of needs to get in the right situation. And so far this year it hasn't been because, again, all the other circumstances surrounding, the offense. It's just kind of a lot of things working against him so far this year, and we'll see how he bounces back then in this second chance.
3rd year under head coach Brent Venables. Is that correct?
Yes.
What is the temperature of the fan base's, I don't know if the right word is acceptance or
sure.
Are they pleased with what the last couple of years have produced under Coach Venables? Obviously, this year hasn't gone great. There's obviously room for improvement down the stretch, but bowl wins in the Cheez-It and Alamo, that doesn't actually, doesn't really roll off the tongue when you think about national championship caliber Oklahoma football.
Yeah, it's kind of in a weird spot right now because I still think Brent Venables is very highly thought of among, OU fans. And he's done an unbelievable job turning around the defense. Everything we're saying about the offense right now was what the conversation was about the defense for years. And it was always, man, if Oklahoma could just have even an average defense to go with these offenses, they would be able to win at the highest level. And so the fact that he's turned that unit into a legitimately good defense in 3 years is really impressive. And the culture's in a great place. They're recruiting very well, all that good stuff. But obviously, the offense is what the offense is right now. And, I think going into the year, most OU fans would have felt very, very good about the direction. The first year was rough, but there was kind of, you give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because there was a complete makeover of the roster. It was kind of a patchwork job that first year and trying to play a completely different style. The second year was a big jump. They won 10 games and everything seemed to just be moving in the right direction. But now you've taken a step back in year three. You've gone backwards. And the question now obviously going to be, and what's going to define the Brent Venables era is going to be what he does with this OC hire. And if he can get the offense right, because I think most feel if he can find the right offensive coordinator to get this offense going to go with the defense, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of games. So, we'll see. I certainly wouldn't say his seat is hot or anything like that right now, but there's frustration this year with the way it's gone, certainly, because there was expectations this year and things are moving in a positive way, and they went backwards. And he's looking at potentially the second losing season in 3 years, which OU never has losing seasons. So for him to have 2 in 3 years would not be great. So we'll see. There's a lot of pressure on him to get it right quick, and it's going to come down to that OC hire, because if they make the right hire there and they get this offense going, the defense is not going to fall off. Even with them, the guys they're going to lose, the way they're recruiting on that side of the football and developing, I mean, every young guy who gets an opportunity has largely made the most of it. It's really impressive what he's done on that side. Unfortunately, football has two sides, and the other side is a disaster. So we'll see what happens going into next year. But there's still a lot of belief, I think, in the trajectory and the plan, the path under Brent. But there's a lot of questions there too, more than I think there would have been a couple months ago.
With Oklahoma and Texas being new to the SEC, is there any way that you could put into words, maybe for the people watching and listening, the significance of the Red River rivalry? Obviously, it didn't go the way of Oklahoma
Yeah.
this year. Texas has a good team under Sark, and what the SEC fans need to understand about the significance of that rivalry?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously everyone has their bias as to what is the greatest rivalry or whatever, however you want to term it. OU fans certainly believe, and Texas fans too, that is the best rivalry in college football, and a lot of believe the best rivalry, one of the best rivalries in sports, and it's completely unique. It's unlike anything else. There's nothing. I think that's a big selling point for it, is that it is one of one at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, which is almost completely equidistant between Norman and Austin, Texas. The Cotton Bowl is split 50-50 right down the middle. The Cotton Bowl is old. It's big. It's not fancy. There's no suites or anything like that. It's at the Texas State Fair. So it's kind of has that feel when you're there of this is exactly how it was 50 years ago. I mean, there's millionaire donors that are in the stands next to college kids. I mean, everyone gets the same experience at that thing. And it's obviously two of the blue blood programs in the sport, however many you think there may be, 6, 7. OU and Texas are two of them, and they play every year, and there's always a lot of stakes. It's completely unique. I recommend everyone try to get there at least once, because at the Texas State Fair, there's nothing like it. I've had the pleasure of covering a lot of big college football games, going to cool venues, Final Four, College World Series in baseball. It's hard to beat the Red River rivalry at the Cotton Bowl. It's completely a one of one, and it's the best. So it's something that we look forward to every single year. And again, a lot of OU fans, and there's a bias there. Everyone thinks that their rivalry is the best, but completely believe that is the best rivalry in the sport, and a game that is unparalleled. It really in any sport, let alone college football.
I know there were probably some preliminary discussions about moving that game to Jerry World, but from what I was told and what I've read is they actually bowled in the north and the south end to make it two complete bowls across the top and the bottom. And I don't know that a lot of other teams play there. So obviously the Cotton Bowl, if it's a committee or what have you, the stadium has, committed a lot of money to that
Yeah.
rebuild. And I guess I'm answering my own question here. Do you ever foresee this game ever moving back to campus or moving to either Oklahoma or Texas campus?
Yeah, I don't think so. There's such a strong love for it being there and at the Texas State Fair. I mean, that conversation just come up all the time, especially I think less so the campus as much as, AT&T Stadium, like you said, Jerry World, something like that. And they got a taste of this once because the Big 12 championship game in 2018 was OU in Texas, and that game's obviously at AT&T. So we all got kind of a taste of it, of what it would be like if it was there. It was almost a trial run. And obviously it was great, and it's a great stadium, all the amenities, it's inside, and all that good stuff. But there's such a love for the uniqueness of it at the fair, the 50-50, and they have made efforts to renovate the Cotton Bowl as much as you can. You're not going to make it as nice as AT&T ever. That's not going to happen. But they've done their best to keep it up to date and things like that. And they did sign an extension recently to keep it there for at least another, whatever it was, 5-6 years. So, I think if they ever tried to move it, and I'm not going to ever say never, because at the end, kind of, money and all that stuff wins out, there would be a lot of pushback and there would be a lot of outrage, I think, for OU and Texas fans alike to keep it where it is and to not mess up one of the traditions of college football. So much has changed, realignment, all that. It's like, this is one of those things, kind of I said earlier, when you're there, you feel it. This is exactly how it was 50, 60 years ago or whatever. Like, it's got that same feel. And so I think there's a lot of belief that it will stay there at least, again, never say never, I guess, but there's no plans to ever take it out of the Cotton Bowl, and there shouldn't be.
Coming back towards the team this year, we talked about Jackson
Yeah.
Arnold at quarterback. Javante Barnes, you expect to see him get a bevy of the carries on Saturday?
Yeah, he's been the primary running back. The run game has been not good, and he's been the only one that's really had any sort of consistency running the football. So, yeah, I would imagine he'll be the go-to back. Taylor Tatum, who's a true freshman, he's kind of been his number two. He provides a little bit of a spark here and there, really dynamic athlete. Gavin Sawchuk was the primary running back last year. He just has not been able to really get on the field, whether it's because of just effectiveness or he's been banged up a little bit here and there, but Javante Barnes has been pretty clearly the number one running back all season long. So I would imagine he'd be the go-to guy for the most part.
What do you attribute the early struggles with Jackson Dart, I'm sorry, Jackson Arnold uh, coming into the season? Which we could talk about Jackson Dart struggles too, but let's stick
Sure.
along the lines of Oklahoma. And what do you think led to Arnold struggling early?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things. I mean, like I said, first off, he has an offensive line that has not performed, so it's tough. I mean, any quarterback when you're under duress and second half. I mean, South Carolina on Saturday, Oklahoma's most recent game, had 9 sacks. It's a program record allowed for Oklahoma. 9 sacks from 9 different players as well. So that kind of gives you the idea of how tough it's been on this offensive line. And like I said, his receiver room has been just crushed with injuries. Coming into the year, that was looked at as one of the strengths of the team, and they just have not been able to catch a single break there. I mean, they brought in Deion Burks from the portal, who was great early, but then he got injured and has been out the last several weeks. Nick Anderson barely played after 10 touchdowns last year. Angel Anthony has barely played in the opener, and that was it. Jaden Gibson's been out all season, got hurt in preseason camp. Jalil Farouk broke his foot in the season opener as well. I mean, those are all guys who are expected to be huge parts of the offense, and they've just been out. I mean, the whole season essentially. So they're relying on a lot of unproven guys or youngsters, freshmen at the receiver room, which hasn't helped. Haven't been able to run the football. It's a new coach. Obviously, it's his first year starter. And I think Jackson had to deal with, that's a guy who was the Gatorade National Player of the Year in high school, Elite 11 MVP. And it's a guy who's been excellent and at the top of the leaderboard wherever he's been. And so he had to deal with, just for the first time really in his life, struggling at football. And I think his confidence was shaken for a while. But again, I give him a lot of credit for kind of sticking with it and not just turtling and giving up. He continued to battle even when he got benched, and now he's back in that starting job. He's a really mature kid, and he has all the talent in the world. You just kind of have to see, the pieces kind of come together around him. So, a lot of factors. He also didn't play well, and he would tell you that himself, which didn't help things, certainly. But there's a lot of factors that go into why the offense is struggling far beyond the quarterback. I think any quarterback on this offense this year, it wouldn't have been pretty, quite frankly, because there's so many issues that go beyond just the guy under center.
Brent Venables, obviously one of the best defensive minds in the country, is always going to have a really good defense. What are some areas you think that they could cause problems for Ole Miss on Saturday? And who are some bright spots for that Oklahoma defense?
Yeah, I mean, the Oklahoma defense is legitimately quite solid. It has kept them in games. I mean, it's kind of crazy. The South Carolina game, they lost 35-9. And so you look at that on paper and say they got blown out, and they did. Oklahoma outgained South Carolina in that game. The defense has not been the problem in the slightest. It's the only reason that they beat Auburn was the defense continuing to make plays and had a big pick six late. They're really good all over the field. I mean, this defensive line has improved steadily each week. Edge rushers are the best Oklahoma's had in a while. Ethan Downs on one side is a veteran who's been around a long time. R. Mason Thomas on the other has been kind of the closer. He's the big sack guy. He's been really, really good. The linebackers are a spot where they're incredibly deep. That's Brent Venables' baby, that position. That's position he played and coached. And that's a spot they're really good at with Danny Stutzman, who was a preseason all SEC guy. And Kip Lewis has really come on. And they have a lot of linebackers they're really happy with. Secondary, the same. Billy Bowman, the same. A preseason all SEC guys having a good another good season. Cornerbacks have come along. A couple of young guys that have really stepped up. Eli Bowen is one of them. So defensively, it's been really good. And they've, for the most part, been very good at forcing turnovers, which has been huge. They didn't force any against South Carolina for the first time this season, but they've been really good at creating negative plays, forcing turnovers. Oklahoma plays an aggressive style of defense. And Brent Venables can scheme it up. That you can poke holes in a lot of things that have gone on at Oklahoma since he's been here, and it hasn't all been pretty. But one thing he can definitely do is coach some defense and come in with a good game plan for the opposing offense. And sometimes over time, if you're an OU defense, I think the worry is that you just get worn down because the offense isn't giving you anything. That's kind of what happened against Texas. The first quarter and a half against Texas was excellent. Quinn Ewers didn't know what he was seeing. He was turning it over. They couldn't move the ball at all. A lot of 3 and outs. But then in a hot day in Dallas, when the offense is not moving the ball, they kind of started to run out of gas. And that's what happened in that game. So, defensively, it's really good. If you're Ole Miss, I think the key would be to take care of the football and make the OU offense beat you, because really the only way OU feels confident they can win a game like this is if they're forcing turnovers, giving the offense short fields. And that's going to be the goal, certainly for that side of the football.
Yeah, as we finish up today, let's kind of get to the game in and of itself. Opened up online at 19.5. I think last I checked was 21.5. Feels like way too many points to me from watching this Ole Miss team all season long, not seeing how they can beat Oklahoma. That just seems like too many points. And just want to get your thoughts on the game. Is it too many points? What's the key to victory for Oklahoma, in your opinion? And what are you kind of expecting on Saturday?
Yeah, it is seemed like a big number. I think it's fair considering that Oklahoma's offense has been so inept and obviously having a hard time just scoring points, period. So that puts you in a tough spot, especially against an Ole Miss team like Kiffin, who can, dial it up, all that good stuff. Jackson Dart, very good quarterback. So, my thoughts are basically, if Oklahoma, the path to victory is probably similar to what Kentucky did, which is, try to muck it up. They certainly got to take care of the football. That's a must. I mean, that's what did the minute against South Carolina was too many turnovers early, put them in a hole, and they just don't have the offensive firepower to overcome something like that. So if you're Oklahoma, it's take care of the ball. Absolute must is to win the turnover battle, probably by at least a couple of turnovers. Give your offense some short fields and keep the score low. Again, like the Kentucky game, I think that's probably the path for Oklahoma. If they're going to win this game, they got to keep it low. 2017 or so is about the ballpark that they're going to be looking for here. So, I do think that as long as Oklahoma avoids turning it over and they avoid those big, huge mistakes, they should have a chance to at least stay in this game and cover the number. But barring something completely different than what we've seen offensively, Oklahoma is rightfully a very big underdog to win the game. So, we'll see what happens. I would favor Ole Miss to win the game, certainly, probably by a couple of touchdowns or so. Again, I like Oklahoma to cover the number if they take care of the ball. But unless things completely change offensively from what we've seen the whole year, but especially the last couple of weeks, now they may get one or two guys back in the wide receiver room, maybe, and that could be a big help. But barring something, a big difference, especially on the offensive line, I would think Ole Miss should be able to win the football game as long as they avoid big mistakes themselves, by a couple of scores or so.
He's Josh Callaway, does a great job covering Oklahoma. He's, of course, with Sooners Illustrated. He and Tom Green are headed over to the game on Saturday. Wish you guys safe travels as you head to Oxford. You can follow him on Twitter /X at Josh M. Callaway. And Josh, thanks very much for joining us today. As today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, when the game starts, use our promo code BLEAV, BLEAV. Save 50% on your welcome bonus. BetOnline, the game starts here. Josh, once again, safe travels to you and Tom, and thanks for joining us here on the BLEAV in Ole Miss podcast.
Absolutely. Look forward to getting over there.